Yeah. Mm. I'm here. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Mm-mm. Mm-mm, do we go? Beautiful, right?
Check, check. For one, for one, two.
I heard your mic check.
Just throat clearing. Tom, is that a real classroom with?
It is a real classroom. I'm just not in it at the moment, but it is a real classroom.
Are they your scribbles back there?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Are they your scribbles? Like, were they your notes from a class?
Those, no, it's funny. They were the notes that fellow faculty members and I were putting together to map out a semester in our then new program.
Nice. What's the program?
It's a master's in branding program at the School of Visual Arts in New York.
Cool. Oh, nice. I toured out there. I didn't make it, but I did apply.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I got in. I didn't make it all the way to accepting
well,
and going. Yeah.
well,
It was I got into their photography program. They were like, you can come, that'd be great. And I wanted more academics. So I ended up at NYU.
uh-huh.
Uh-oh.
Well,
Here we
our-
go.
Well, our branding program, I don't know if you have explored the curriculum of our branding program, but it's pretty academic.
Yeah. Tom teaches there, just so you know.
No, great. That's good. That's good. Yeah. I found that at NYU, there was often people I would have loved to have studied from, but I was never told that they were at the university. They're like, it's actually so big a research institution that like.
Uh-oh. Yeah. See, that's what happens. That's what happens.
With a little bad juju on it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. The force is around us. It surrounds us, and it infuses
writing
all
about
living
that.
beings.
I was just writing about the forces. It's funny.
Were you for your newsletter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really think I should wear this, right? I mean, it's
Oh,
only,
yeah.
it's only
Yeah.
fair.
There you go. I got the new ones.
Yeah, I have that sticker.
Oh yeah.
I actually put it on my oblique strategies case so that it's, oh, you can't see.
Oh
it,
yeah,
but
there it goes.
Yes, there you go.
I gave one to a guy the other night at this event. And he stuck it on his iPhone.
Ooh, that's commitment. Thank you, by the way, for the shipment.
Yeah, of course,
Appreciate it.
Tom. Of course. Of course.
How are the students today, Tom? Are they full of energy? Are they beaten down by life?
It's we've been hybrid now for 2 years after 1 year of complete virtual. I've been virtual since March of 2020. And students have, in our program anyway, have adapted really well to being hybrid and being virtual. But overall, I think, I guess traumatized would probably be like the headline that I put. Not as much as my grandsons who are in high school, who have seriously been traumatized.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What's the shape of that trauma
Um,
for the high school for your grandchildren?
it's invisible trauma to them in the sense that they don't realize how much their lives have been affected by the social, withdrawal and their isolation
Yeah.
from others. But I see it in just their energy. There's a kind of an ennui that just and I'm not sure about how optimistic they are about the future. I don't
Yeah.
see a lot of
A lot of
know,
future anxiety.
damn, I
and-
can't wait,
yeah,
to
Yeah. When I become an
out there.
astronaut, it's gonna be fun. Yeah.
right. Exactly. I mean, it's really, I don't know. Well, of course, they're adolescents, so I don't know. It's probably
The mood.
top
yeah.
of mind for
That's
any
right.
question.
How are you doing?
I-
Fine.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay.
Man.
Yeah. So I'm trying, and then of course all the studies you see, the studies are, not encouraging.
Yeah. I talked to Will Richardson in the Discord,
Mm-hmm.
Because he had that book that he put together with his colleague for the Big Questions Institute, and like when we did a podcast recording, which I hope to get up pretty sharpish, maybe something I'll work on this weekend. It was beautiful, and also feeling the challenge. But what was really beautiful is that he's an educator, so he spent 22 years, something like that, teaching high school. And rather than retiring and just being like, all right, I'm gonna go fly fishing, like this is his mission now, is to really try to essentially like help find the way for education to imagine harder about what education is. And so for him, he was just very complimentary about design fiction and the community, all of us, just because it's like it gives me a place to really question the questions, and he more than anyone probably recognizes the systemic challenges. I mean, when we were talking, you hear all these stories about just like school boards, how toxic they are. I just can't even imagine, trying to deal with having kids and wanting them to be educated well, and then you've got a plant from some weird conservative group or something that's trying to essentially take over the board so that they can turn it into a charter school, because the charter school businesses, it's like $100 billion business. So all this kind of stuff. It's like, man. I just had a friend who basically took her kids out of school, and she's just traveling around the world with them. She's like, I just don't, everything's kind of screwed up.
It's a workplace environment, right? I mean, it makes me sort of think about what you've got coming up in the seminar. Like, it's an obligatory workplace that you only have so much control over as somebody who works there, right? Like, you don't really get to opt in or out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I think that's why people are really vocal about school choice. Like, I think the pandemic revealed to a lot of parents that they didn't like the education that their kids were getting. So it kind of created a huge shift. And that's why there's so much more active PTA participation now. Because, it's kind of like bliss is ignorance. If you only have a peripheral awareness of what your kids are being taught versus like witnessing how classes are being run, et cetera, I think it really kind of shifts that. I mean, I just think, you can already see like there's like a 75% rise in people hiring speech therapists, because so many kids of development ages missed looking at how mouths move to create sound. So like, already I feel like Gen Z is very like phone call resistant and won't, prefers text, et cetera. Like that's just going to get sort of more exacerbated just because, the ability to speak has been even sort of further compromised. And now it's just like an anxiety. It's not just like anxiety with options. Now it's like, no, like, it's really difficult for me to look at people's mouths moves and like perceive what they're actually saying. It's pretty horrific how, pandemic response and actions, et cetera, has like really compromised a whole generation.
Yeah, that's the invisible trauma, right? I mean, it's sort of, you would never think of that, simple act of acquiring experience of speaking in the presence of others, which we, mostly learn, preschool, kindergarten, and then, find a comfort zone with as we get older. If you don't have the opportunities,
Yeah.
you don't learn.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even just opportunities. It's like, this is how we develop as humans, right? Like my parents wanted me to take public speaking when I was in high school because I really struggled not to mumble, and I struggled to communicate with people clearly. And I just think like now that's like going to be 10 times worse. I was an outlier then. Now I feel like that's going to be kind of the norm in terms of interacting with kids and like people being able to interact as adults. Like already I feel like looking at the sort of hiring market and employment landscape, like just being able to talk to strangers cohesively, like feels like now that's like becoming a value add like, and kind of a necessary skill that employers don't feel like they should have to put on job, like for listings, but now they're having to because so few people are actually able to do that in terms of people coming up in this generation.
I want to just a nudge of structure to office hours. Just a little bit, but I do want to make sure that there, because we got so many projects going, that if any of the showrunners have something that they want to, just to give them some space to share or bring us up to speed and that kind of thing. So we make sure that we have that opportunity. Anything really. And I can also talk about some stuff that I've been working on feverishly and with a lot of excitement and enthusiasm, breathless excitement and enthusiasm. So
we have an update in the chore, but I'm just gathering myself after jumping off a call. So Julian, if you want to talk about breathless excitement, I would love that for a minute or two while I collect myself.
Okay, or maybe Thomas, anything that you want? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to. I don't want you guys to feel like, okay, so I'm just going to go to the PowerPoint here, and
No,
can you
I
turn
don't
on
have
the
a
can you turn on the
PowerPoint.
overhead projector? Yeah, just bring that right here.
I don't want to come after Kemp's PowerPoint.
Yeah, Kim's got a good presentation.
yeah,
That's for
man.
sure.
I got a quick update. Just
Dude, that's all trauma from consulting, by the way. It's like a trauma mechanism.
well, it's always very nice. So I have Tuesday workshop for Green Pages is back on. For those of you, if there's anyone unfamiliar with the project, it's basically a publication of like our musings of creating design fictions for the future of filmmaking. And on Tuesday, from starting at 9 until we finish, people can come and go as they please. We're gathering ideas for advertisements and articles to happen in the magazine or in the publication. So on Tuesday, by Tuesday, we'll talk about things, but then we'll have like a virtual copy of what we have so far in the new format. And then I'm also going to try to throw another workshop on Friday in the evening, next Friday. So in case people aren't able to join on Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time, I'll find another time at like 4 or 5 on Friday Pacific time. And there will be events in the Discord, but feel free to join and jump in and let me know if you guys have any questions.
Cool.
I'll just try to hop in on that. I have some ideas for like sports coverage.
Yeah. Also, if I'm in San Francisco, we should go to.
Yeah, we should hang out.
Yeah.
My cough is now just obnoxious. Nothing else. So yeah, I would love to get coffee or whatever.
I'll shoot you a message.
Cool. I can offer a Trip City update if anybody wants. Rather short. I've just been kind of making my rounds a little bit with folks. I finally met with Drew.
Do you want to just provide some context, like what it is?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the Trip City thread generously was offered by Dre and Julian, basically as a space to kind of talk about skateboard acts, like the skateability of cities, right? So the basic premise being that a skatable city is an accessible city. And the sort of short term, I make skateboards, teach skateboarding, and I'm interested in sort of moving into the space of like lobbying cities to make their environments more accessible to skateboarding because of its additional knock-on effects for all kinds of other mobility solutions. So recently submitted a grant proposal to University of Michigan for an urban prototyping grant to make a skateboard profilograph, which would attach sensors to skateboards as a way of mapping all of the sort of transitions and textures and traffic of a city in a way that's not typically easy to capture by any other means. And then pairing that with biometric data and like accelerometers on the body to also understand how the built environment actually sort of resonates through the body in the ways that it moves through space. and then using all of that to actually present proposals for new designs for sidewalks and streets and pathways, ideally with sort of like minimum viable product, right? Like I attend city meetings and stuff like that to understand kind of like what the politics and bureaucracy are that get in the way of good solutions. And so sort of trying to take into account all of that, plus like, you know, the voices of the maintenance workers and things like that, to come up with solutions where people basically have a very hard time saying no, because you've already done all of the work necessary to, you know, to address their questions. So my sort of update for this week is that I met with Drew yesterday, and we talked about the idea of doing like a data fiction. So even prior to doing any data collection, he says, like, you know, the classic problem is you collect all the data and then you hand it to an analyst. And so instead, this time, you know, actually figuring out, well, what are the different types of things that we would want to record, make a fiction of that, just sort of like some fictional results from it. And then ultimately you just, you know, swap out the fictional data for real data once you've got it. So that's sort of the idea there. The other update is sort of going off of Julian had an idea for doing a city guide, like the kind of thing you would see like when you walk off the BART. You know, you get out of the train and there's like a big, you know, wallpaper size city guide. My friend who I posted his PDF in the Trip City chat of like it's a GIS study on like skate parks throughout San Francisco as compared to tennis courts and basketball courts and things like that. This is sort of like a separate thread of this whole thing, but the idea is, you know, one goal is to update sidewalks and the other goal is to reclaim tennis courts, because it would make a lot of sense to start putting, you know, sort of roughly like similar skate parks that are very accessible for, you know, people who are learning and kids and stuff like that, and take what is, you know, max 4 people at a time kind of space and transition it into like a max, you know, 40 people at a time kind of space as a way of activating a lot of you know, youth and, you know, cross-generational communication and stuff like that. So my friend who made that GIS study is interested in actually helping to develop some of that stuff. So he's in planning, and so it's sort of an opportunity to like maybe use some of the 3D design skills that are, you know, present in this group and start to come up with like you know, sort of imaginary plans for what you would do if you could take 10 tennis courts from around San Francisco, right? And so it's like thinking about how that sort of fits into the city guide, right? Like you would have your map of the city plus like your little magnifying glass, and it like shows the details of that one skate park, you know, and, you know, whatever else, what events are held there on an annual basis and stuff like that. But it just makes me think of all of those sort of ephemera that might come out of that space. So he's into it, and so it could be kind of fun to start thinking towards that.
That's really cool. I can give an update for the ABC. I think we're kind of, let me see, I'll share my screen if I can. I can't. Okay. We kind of moved into InDesign.
Screen sharing's on now. Sorry.
Oh, is it? All right.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh yeah, awesome. Let me know if this works. Oh, I can even see you. Is that working?
Yeah, that's great. Cool.
Awesome. So we had this. We kind of moved from, hey, here's a bunch of Midjourney stuff, or like, to give people background in case they're newer people. We're trying to make this design fiction book from like the future that avoided the climate catastrophe. So we take the janky time machine to the future. We end up in like a kid's bedroom. We grab a book. We get back in the machine. We come home and we examine what we have. And it's an ABC book that's the big themes that like helped avoid the climate disaster. And the whole motivation is to try to inject like hope and optimism into like climate futures for kids. Because I read this article where like high school kids have kind of feel defeated and have given up. And I think like if we don't have hope, these kids are not going to solve the things we need them to solve. We got blocked for a little while where we had these awesome Midjourney images. We couldn't figure out how to lay them out in a book. And then Dre had the really good idea from, I think is it Tom Stallenhag, the really awesome alternate futures from Sweden, where it's like, you know, amazing robot technology and it's the 80s somehow. But the layout of that book is broadly like this, where the main images go over the spread, and then there's like a place for this narrative on the side. And this one is sort of like the topics are big, so the narrative is not so dense. Yeah, I can probably scroll up here and find one. This is sort of what we had been doing, and it was difficult to try to figure out how to protect the text that we wanted to put on these like images that are all like very dynamic. So we think that this layout where things are to the side work well. And I'm just kind of going back through some of the images and yeah, laying them out in this way. The other issue is that Midjourney just keeps on getting better every quarter. So every quarter you kind of like look back at the images that you did last quarter and you go like, well, those are garbage. And so I've been doing a lot of like regenerating images to try to keep the same consistency and the like, not even the visual style, but kind of like the visual fidelity. There's a couple of ones that you can tell Dre has done because they're awesome. Like he's composited stuff together. But yeah, there's like a huge discrepancy between like say this one and like this one here. That was like Midjourney V1, I think. And
that was like last year, right?
Yeah, that was when it first became popular.
Yeah,
I don't even think that was on Midjourney. That looks more Stable Diffusion in terms of visual language, just because the checkpoints are different.
Yeah, might have been because we were playing around with a bunch of different tools at that time. But yeah, so like Adobe's like the tools are not so awesome for collaborating on. So this is even like my fork of my saved file of the project. But if you do want to like help out on this, I can share the link to the Dropbox we're working from. The thing that we've done is like we've made all of these images their own PDF, and then we have those in like a different directory, and we just link them into the InDesign file. So people can work on the images independently. You can make your own copy of the InDesign file and make any modifications that you want. And at some stage, I think when we probably have this format for all the images, we'll do a share out to, or we'll set up a crit, I think, with the people who want to come to do like a proper critique of everything, like the content, the layout, which images are good, which need to change. So yeah, I would like to get to there soon because we've been doing this almost a year. It would be good to get to like a check mark. And then just as a final thing, like this image in particular, like the one with the Xistus, that's the new Midjourney Niji engine that's kind of like optimized for anime. And like some of the stuff it's coming out with is just awesome. Like the light in here, I just love. It's just like somehow very Parisian. And so every now and again, I think like we're hitting stuff like that where it's like, it's good. It's not particularly aping anybody's style. So like we didn't put prompts in there to say like, hey, give us this in the style of Studio Ghibli. It's just like, hey, use your anime engine. And then the only other thing that's like slightly nervous is the whole discourse around the AI generated stuff has changed radically since last year. So I think we want to avoid having stuff that leans too far into like the Studio Ghibli prompts that we had been using to get the style that we wanted before. So yeah, I should probably stop talking.
Thank you, David.
Cool. Looks great. Super exciting.
At one point, we talked about reaching out to people to get book intros written. Is that still something we're interested in doing? Because we should like have like a little press kit with some pages or something to be able to approach people.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think like we had mentioned like having asking JMO if you wanted to, and then I can't remember who else. I think we had also talked about approaching the Midjourney folks because they were in San Francisco and being like, we've literally used this for the thing you say you do. Like we're using it as an imagination tool. Like, how would you like some good press for a week? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. So we want to assemble a press kit so we can reach out to people a little bit, you know, some sizzle to incentivize.
And I think the other thing is like the synopsis of the meta story, like just that bit of like, so we have this janky time machine and we took it to the future and we picked up this book and like it came back and like we needed to reconstruct it or whatever it is. Like I think like having like some little bit about that would be really cool. Like
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think it's all part of it. We need to tell enough of a story to like incentivize people to, you know, get excited and want to contribute, you know, or want to write about it on their publication, right?
I would even suggest like not that there's something because I've been like studying at a level I've never really studied before, the Franz Joseph's technical manual, and I think we had talked about this before, and I think it's like a fun conceit, at least for the moment, for like, you know, for design fiction projects, is like, don't be like, hey, what you're gonna, this is how this is what this is, in case you're confused. It's like find the opportunity for them to kind of just metabolize their confusion, and Franz Joseph does a really beautiful job. There's nothing in it that would lead you to be like, oh, okay, here's the little pressy that explains how I'm supposed to read this. It starts like the first page is like a memo from some, you know, some special services branch of like the Department of Defense that says this transmission came in on the high band at the Antarctica station. You know, it's not exactly that, but basically that's what they're saying. And this is the memo that there's a memo that cover sheet says like, this is what this is, and we're not sure where it came from, but look at this incredible data. And it's as if their teletype all of a sudden started rattling off, you know, 96 pages of schematics and designs from, I don't know, we've got our best analysts on it, and this is really confused. Never before, it's anomaly. Like, we got to keep this like on lockdown. This is Area 51 kind of stuff. Like, don't. So I feel like, you know, there's a way in which you could sort of be very didactic and explain to people like, hey, we're the Near Future Laboratory. We create products from the future, and this is one of them. And it's you know, it's $30 on the website, and it's a limited drop of 1,024, as opposed to like, David went in his backyard and he stepped into the garden shed and he felt a little woozy and he came to, and he was underfoot was a bunch of Cheerios. They looked like Cheerios, but actually, and he saw a box and he's like, what the hell's going on here? And he grabbed this thing and he looked at it, and then he felt woozy again, and he ended up back in his garden shed. His kids were like, hey, Dad, you okay? You're like, look what I found. So there's that fun, you know, playful element, so that it
I think that's good, like for press
sorry,
and for public.
I'll just finish. Sorry.
Okay.
So then it feels like you have a habit of doing that, Camille. Just to say, I know you're excited.
I know it's terrible. Well, no, my time is limited. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. So that there's a point of entry that is that kind of fun, playful element. You know, that sort of speaks to kids, and kids don't need to be explained to it. It's just like, wow, this is a fun thing. Otherwise, I feel like it becomes like a little bit of like an academic kind of thing.
I have a question. Is the intention to produce hard copies of this?
Oh yeah. Oh, totally.
Okay.
Yeah. We make products from the future.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm saying like we're approaching potential collaborators to like write book intros or to feed it on their network. So I don't know if like we can necessarily tempt them in the same way that we would tempt like a normal audience, like assuming we want that. You know, like I guess I'm thinking we're approaching people as a means of, hey, you know, we'd appreciate if you like, you know, wrote the intro to this book for these reasons, not, hey, will you help us sell this because we're using your products? Like those are two very different conversations.
But so then what happens if you have like an intro that is didactic? Like if JMO writes something, should JMO be writing something that introduces
from the future? He should be writing it from the future as an old man.
Yeah. And maybe it's just like the text on the back. You know, like sometimes text will have a little blurb on the back that says, you know, like I'm you know, my dad JMO was, you know, something like that. JMO,
it-
JMO Junior, JMO the second.
So
Oh,
I think that's great if we
mm.
have like an in-group person write the intro, but like,
And I think we should
I
keep it to
guess
that,
let's,
just to kind of keep it clean
okay,
and kind of. I mean,
okay.
that's my instinct. I don't know. Oh,
No,
David, it's your
I don't
project.
disagree. I'm just, I'm keeping things open, and I'm thinking, because it's like, if there are people I can ask personally, who have skin in the game in terms of like machine learning chops, like I want to know, like, is this something I should be like looking at them to potentially work on, or like, this is totally in group, and I think that's great either way. It's just context, and presentation, and like, what are we looking for in a very concrete way in terms of needs?
Wouldn't it, I guess, why not AI writing the intro? Everything else is AI. Why would a human have to be tasked with the intro?
ChatGPT just writes all intros in the future.
Yeah. What would be hilarious is if you had different AIs write reviews of the book that was generated from one of the AIs. Different AIs reviewing each other's work would be hilarious.
I think that's great. I think that's like a whole other project.
Yeah. Just sorry,
Yeah.
random thought.
No, I think it's great. I think it was mentioned somewhere. I don't know if it was here in another conversation I was having with someone else, but since like Google Bard's debut like failed so intensely with getting that fact wrong about the James Webb Telescope, it becomes like this weird race to the bottom where it's like, well, who's AI is the best at fact checking AI? Then you have AIs on AIs to test new AIs, or using like older like fact checking capabilities and stuff. So I think it's a fun wormhole, but I think we're focused on projects right now.
And this is it's all great. This is super fun stuff. And then I would also, we should just consider be mindful. It's like, this isn't. We've passed our our comfortable, our just kind of like our deadline in terms of when we wanted to have it done. So okay, so should we add another thing where someone's been like, yeah, I can totally do that. I can get it done by the end of April.
Was the body text AI generated, or is that handwritten?
So initially, I think some of the original prompts or some of the original words might have come from like a ChatGPT query, but I don't imagine there's actually a single original piece of that left. Like, it's kind of been written and rewritten, and like interesting words have been suggested and replaced and things. So somewhere in there in like the genesis, but after that the language is like all written by us.
That's interesting. I just think it's interesting from a conceptual point of view, like what parts got offloaded to AI. So basically, kind of what this might say about the future is illustrators, their job is toast. But writers, and especially book intro writers, people who can write intros, still have work in the future.
I think that, to me, the fascinating thing is to really feel into what. So the illustrator isn't toast; they're sourdough now, in the sense of like it's just evolved. So like I think David is David's a practiced creative technologist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he is managed, and it's been beautiful to watch the evolution. Seeing all the, as you've learned and you've reacted and responded to, like, oh, I've got this great studio assistant. It's called Midjourney. And every 3 or 4 months, Midjourney kind of like skills up in some ways. Like, oh man, so that really worked out. You went to, you did a little, as it would be if you had a studio assistant. You might be like,
mm-hmm.
Okay, here's the brief. This is what we're trying to do. But they're not a robot in the sense of, unless you're a really bad artist, you're really collaborating with them. Like, you're like, hey, it's an apprentice kind of relationship maybe, and hopefully you're not being extractive of there, and you're not saying like, hey, that's a really great idea, I'm going to call it mine. You're like working together. And so that's how I see these kind of relationships. If I were to try to be like a little bit less alarmist about the future of AI, we're all out of work and stuff. It's like, okay, we could look at it that way. That's one way to feel into this future. But is that a constructive way? Is that going to help us imagine all the new possible arrangements and relationships that we could have with they're not our overlords, they're our collaborators. Maybe they will become our overlords, but only if we imagine them as such.
And
I
there are
think
definitely-
that's
sorry.
Yeah.
I was to say, like, there are definitely limits to the Midjourney operation, like that, right? The fact that it's not super editable right now. Like, I don't know. I made this this skateboard deck graphic recently with somebody, and it was like, this was a long iterative process of like figuring out what this world was that we wanted it to be. It's like this skatable landscape, and it went through iteration after iteration. We like moved things up and down and changed line thicknesses and like, you know, put things in and took them out and all this stuff. And it's like, that's all the stuff that you can't do with Midjourney, right? Like you respin the prompt and it gives you something new. And so it's like, everything that I have loved about creative direction and the processes of collaborating with illustrators, as far as I can tell, does not sound possible with Midjourney. And I think the Midjourney stuff is really cool, but like I see that Xistis, illustration, I'm like, that's beautiful. What's going to keep the water from dropping on the sidewalk? Like Midjourney, can you make the same thing, but with something that diverts the water so I can still skate under this pretty thing? It's so, and it's not going to do that for you, right? Like it's not going to give you the same thing, but.
Well, Midjourney is also AI generation based on prompts with kid gloves, right? Like have a local stable diffusion install. You can make and train custom models with custom checkpoints. You can do it in painting, right? Like Midjourney is just a means of accessibility for a lot of people who don't have the, tools, ability, or, desire to operate this stuff locally, right? That's why it has such a clear, specific aesthetic that changes every few months. You can even use like different versions of Midjourney as a prompt to generate a specific aesthetic for types of visual generation. So I know we're talking about and calling this Midjourney, but it's like,
yeah, we just have to feel into what we want it to be. So we don't have to, assume that it's Midjourney. It could just be like, the evolution of it that's like called, Studio Assistant. And it actually, you can say like, hey, that's, I could totally imagine this. And I think it's entirely technically possible. I have to imagine. It's just that whatever the Midjourney folks are doing at this point, it's like, yeah, that's on the list. It's just down there right now. Like our investors are saying like, just get more people on. So that's what we're doing, all those kinds of constraints. And I know, Camille, you said you're time constrained. I definitely want Kemp to be able to share while you're around.
Yeah, does Kemp want to go ahead now?
I don't know. I guess I'm just asking if he does.
Yeah, I can go. I have a couple updates. So Chorecoat, I'll do physical first. I just added some photos to the merch. I resized our very avant-garde V2 jacket, which was very oversized. I think we need to do a version 3. So that I think I might even try to sew. I'm going to bust out my sewing machine and just take a crack at that. Jed, since you're on the call, is the best thing to do to try to resize those files for the digital ones, or should I just go ahead and get we talked about getting a projector and then just doing a pattern. I mean, time-wise, it might be the same, right? Just to get like an Amazon projector have it shipped and then just do a pattern at home.
Are you, okay, did you ask about resizing the files first? That's not so hard, just to resize them.
Yeah, if we resize them and then cut them, laser cut them, I mean, time-wise, it might just be easier for me to have a projector sent here and then cut it all.
You mean make, are you talking about making a new file or just using a projector to not use the laser cutter? I don't know what you're saying.
Not use a laser cutter. Yeah, whatever would be easier.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to use the laser cutter, it's fine, like we did before. Yeah, so I'm happy to help you with that part of it. If you want to go a different route, then yeah, do that. Okay,
I'll think about it. I don't know why I don't know why the sizing of that got so large. So I'll look at the pattern this week.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's only like, I want it 10% smaller, that's really pretty straightforward. We can just go through the process of cutting it again a little bit smaller. So whatever seems more efficient for you is fine.
Yeah, And then I think we need to have a physical sort of, I think the chore code, I think, just needs some deadlines, both with the physical and the digital. Or maybe narrative plays a role in this too, with what makes us different. So, you know, with the idea of how we're adding trim, that I think is my concern now is, are we just doing this randomly? We've been kind of workshopping off of this idea of adding accessories. The accessories were coming from the digital aspect of it. The chore code sort of being this ultimate, continuous permutation article of clothing that sort of went into the near future or came from the near future and constantly like allowed the future explorer to adapt. But I think we may be doing a little bit of a reset. I'm not really sure. We had a reset with the digital, and Dre led a workshop this week. So I want to sort of talk about that next. And Dre's not on the call, right? I don't see Dre. Okay, so Dre led a really great workshop. This past week, we did a Miro board exercise on sort of narrative building, really focusing on what the digital aspect of this coat was all about. So I can share my screen and show you what that was. So this is what Dre put together, which was really cool. So we started off doing this orbital archetypes. So we started off with the coat in the center, and then really just adding, everyone can see this, right? Yeah. Adding elements like physical things. So tags, cleaning materials. We had a good group on the call. And then from that, we just started taking objects from there and creating ideas and narratives around it. So I think we had some really good ones. And then we were going to present today 2 or 3 ideas. And I think, Camille, you had one that you threw into the Discord. Do you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, you can just pop in the Discord and see it. I mean, it's just like a GIF using a lint roller to apply color, compared to other things. Just really quick sort of illustrative, design idea based on iteration.
That's funny.
It's got that vibe from WALL-E, when everybody realizes that the new hot color is blue, and everybody's their jumpsuits change color.
It's the cat hair roller. I'm familiar with that one. Right?
Yeah.
Is that a cat hair roller, Camille?
Yeah, it's like a lint
funny.
roller, but instead of acting as lint roller, it's acting as like a paint roller.
No, I get it, but I just love that because you have a cat and I have a cat.
Maybe it's revealing messages. Maybe it's showing a secret code if you swipe it across the sleeve in the right way. But I just like it as a mechanism, and it's like something that feels like it could live in like the digital, augmented sort of reality space.
Or what about like
easily.
you wear, because it's a chore coat and it's work oriented, like every day you have to clean your coat off, because if you look at it in augmented reality, it's got like grease stains and marks from doing work, and so you just have, it's part of the ritual. It's like, and that way some people let it accumulate because they're like, man, this shows that I'm working hard.
If we use thermochromic paint, I think that'd be cool. I know they make some dyes that are like that, but also like if we're looking at it like at the end of the day you brush off, it'd be nice if it actually keeps like a record or something. It's like it takes off all the grease, but then you roll it on a separate surface and then it like unrolls all the things it took off basically.
Camille, as you were saying that, it reminded me of like those notepads when you draw and then they automatically appear inside of an app, whatever you write.
Oh yeah.
And I was wondering, like, if you were in AR, I was curious if you're in AR and you did this painting, that it would appear on the code. If there's a way to do something like that.
That'd be cool. I think there is, like, in a web AR context. depending on how quickly things update. But that means, you know, like we have to have some form of a projector or something, I imagine, to have it show up on the coat IRL, like some like Lumen type app.
If you could limit it to, let's say, the pocket, you could put an OLED, flexible OLED behind the pocket.
No, let's get simpler. Let's do e-ink.
Even better.
You know, just like an e-ink patch or something. Like that'd be dope. Then it just becomes about, you know, the normal things why people hate wearables in fashion, cleaning, keeping it charged.
Yeah.
Cool. So
Yeah.
what else is going on, Kemp?
So there was another, so I'll just share mine too, since I think it's a little bit related. I don't have a really fun GIF, but I did some like little narrative mood boarding down here. Mine's sort of similar related to Camille's. I was thinking about having the coat have this like, I was thinking, I did a little narrative here to help me get prompted, but I was thinking about the seams having this sort of invisible traced ink in it, and leaving behind these physical traces. So this idea of like the themes, like, because all the themes, as I've been working on the chore coat, one of the reasons why I think it got so big in version 2 in the physical format is that everything is designed in the patterns, everything's designed to be rolled up, right? Like you have the seam and it's folded over on itself 2 or 3 times. So you build up like the cuff a little bit. And I was thinking about these things could be embedded with like an ink or some sort of trace. And I was really enjoying what came up in this ideation session a lot was this idea of tagging or physical existence. And I love this idea in Camille's GIF, I think does a really good job of showing that, of somehow showing a some form of presence. I think about it, I love the idea of it exuding, bleeding out almost. So that was sort of one idea that I was working off of. Maybe not so practical, but kind of ran with that. And I don't think there's anyone else on our group that was here.
Just me.
Oh, Aaron, nice. Did you work on any of your projects?
As in like refining what we did in the thing into a further state? No.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. So I think we're at the point now where we need to figure out what our digital reasoning is. Next steps probably are to reconvene and figure out I think we need to do another, like, come to, what's the right term here? Real talk on what we want to do. Do we want to move forward with the accessory workshop idea? Do we want to move forward with one of these ideas? Dre was sort of talking about doing a voting system of one of these. So I think maybe this week, if you guys are around who showed up on the first call, get together and see what the, like Camille, for example, like if we really want to move forward with one of these, I think now's the time to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, I was thinking of just seeing if I could develop like an app, like, web app prototype, just of this idea, like super simple, fairly accessible, like just doing it, seeing how far it goes, checking the vibe with you guys.
Yeah.
Just because it feels like accessible and tangible, and it doesn't require something much more than, like a camera and some form of occlusion.
And I think that is going to inform the physical coat as well, right? So like if our physical coat looks one way and our digital, and we're doing something digitally that doesn't pair up, it's going to feel really disconnected. So I kind of want to nail down both at the same time, so that we don't have a coat that has one aesthetic and a digital aspect to it that has another. So maybe I'll put together, let's just ask who's interested in working on this further. Camille, it sounds like you are. Nice. Julian, Aaron, I can't see everybody. Where is everybody else? Why is let me stop sharing my screen here. Cool, Jed. All right, sweet. If there's anybody else, just DM me and on Discord, but I'll put together a call this week. I think this week what I'll do is I'll put together, this is where we've come from, like a formal presentation, but more of a one page. And so that we're not doing a full PowerPoint. This is where we've come from. This is where we're at. These are the deadlines I'd like to get. I'd like to get this done by like mid-spring so that we're going to a developer. And the developer I've talked to, Julian, so we can actually hop on the call this week if you'd like to.
Awesome.
They are good to go. They're actually looking for work, so that's really great. They were working.
Which one was this? I think you.
They're called Scott by Scott. Now they're not cheap, but we wouldn't go to them until we actually. I think we would hire an independent sewer first, who have also contacted. The independent sewer is this guy named Alex. He actually did one of Lady Gaga's Grammy dresses. Actually, Camille, they're from SAIC. Do you know Alex?
What's his last name?
And I know Sam, you went there too. I know I'm using first names like he's Cher. Fine. And I know the Gaga thing sounds expensive, but he's not. He's totally accessible. I'll put it in the Discord.
Just yeah, this is great.
But
this is awesome. I think I think one of the beautiful things that's going to come out of this, aside from the work itself, is we're going to know the tool chain for doing stuff, and that's maybe the as valuable as the thing itself, because this is just the first. This is just the first thing.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I want to make sure digital and physical line up. I want to start making it, and then I want to get it in the hands of an actual sewer, so that we can have a prototype, and then we can get it to a developer. The prototyper will prototype till it gets really good. Then we'll have somebody make us a nice prototype, right? Like Alex theoretically, or some sewer would make us a nice prototype. Then we would take it to a developer. Then they can make it, right? So this week, I think let's just get all of those ducks in a row so that we're off to the races. That's sort of how I feel.
Yeah, off to the races. Cool. Just mindful
using a lot
time.
of like, yeah. I actually have to hop off on I know it's all corporate stuff. I actually have a start of London Fashion Week, so I have a call I have to hop off on to go to that.
It's good stuff, Kemp. Good stuff.
I know. But Ben, I also wanted to invite you. I sent you a direct message. If you can join any of this digital stuff, I think you have a good background in it.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. I'd be happy to help like crank out some prototypes on like quick running a digital try on sort of thing.
Perfect.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Ben rocks.
Awesome, y'all. Cool, y'all. I will talk to you. I'll send out an invite. I think it's going to be on a Wednesday evening. Cool.
Good deal.
All right, I'll see y'all.
Take care, my friend.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. What else? In terms, Jed, where's your head at in terms of sharing? Do you want me to share? Do you want to talk about it? Should we talk about it?
Sure.
Or is it, are you feeling like
well, I mean, it's like we got images and we got some stuff. Definitely I don't know. Start it off, I guess. Yeah.
So I feel like Jed and I have known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And Jed was I feel like one day I was like really goading Jed. I was like, man, you gotta jump into this mid journey. Just just feel into it a little bit. And so Jed started doing that. And one of the recurring themes in Jed's work is hooved animals.
Yeah, sheep, hybrids.
And cows. I learned a lot about cows. He's like, no, that's a belted Galloway. I was like, oh, excuse me. And we've done a bunch of projects together and toured a bunch of his work around the world and all this kind of stuff. So it's been really nice continuing to just collaborate. And So Jed started playing with Midjourney.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, go ahead.
and he started sharing some of the stuff. I was like, damn it, man, this is good stuff. And it was like he was doing sheep, and they were, and I think Jed was kind of like, you know what, so what, how to prompt. And so I basically gave Jed essentially like the Mad Lib of the prompt that I'd been using, you know, and I had been using it sort of thoughtlessly, not really over analyzing it, but it was producing stuff that I was excited about. Like, if you follow me on Instagram, it was like a bunch of the car stuff, and I just had these terms, you know, around it, and then Jed sort of used that, and instead of, you know, putting in the automobile or whatever, he put in sheep, and these sheep started coming out. It's just like this is good stuff. And we'd also been talking about doing, you know, I love doing cards, and we'd been kind of talking about like trading cards and systems for trading cards or collectors cards. And so once those things kind of came together, I was like, very quickly, I was like, I think we got a project here. And so Jed kind of took that and started grinding on stuff. And then Jed shared it with his stepdad, who's a huge PK Dick fan, and he was like, hey, do you know about this book, like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And so then you have this third leg on it. It's like, what are these cards, and what world did they come from? Did they come from the world in which, yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal. It's not, you know, yes, the androids dream of electric sheep, and these are the flashcards that they have, you know, to kind of luxuriate in their kind of imagery, you know, as you might, you know, it's a kid's thing, I don't know, or something like that. That part isn't together, but once you had this, oh yeah, PK Dick, you have Jed and his sheep, and then you have these images. Like there was something nascent, something really embryonic there that I thought felt like in a theme of, you know, where we lie. Are they, you know, the garbage pail kids for the future where they're androids, you know, or the just the collector's cards, like, oh my gosh, there's a Raytheon 3312. Look, and it's got three legs. I remember that one. You know, like you see a Mercedes, one of their Mogs with like the triaxle, and you're like, whoa, look at that thing. So anyway, that's where my head's going. But Jed, it's
yeah, no, that covers a lot of it. I would say, like, you know, the images were definitely trying to, like Julian had said, it's like I started with his prompts. I hadn't messed with Midjourney, and then, you know, I was trying to bring something in relatable to kind of his flow of work going on with the cars, but different. And then also Julie had been mentioned, I'm like, because this whole story with, I saw one of his cars, I'm like, what's up with this? And he's like, oh, maybe it's an auto trader of the future type of thing. And it got me going on this old trade swap kind of catalog that was local to where I grew up in the Northeast, called Uncle Henry's. And so I think early in this process, I took a couple of these images and then showed it to Julian, and then he started, you know, he ripped on one of them. I'm like, can you just come up with a statement here about what this sheep's about, or what this image is about? And I started showing that around. I mean, we could show that somewhere here, but you know, it was hilarious. It was kind of in the tone of this is a used model and it's for sale, I guess, but giving some background on how it functioned and what had been tuned up and all this kind of stuff. So I think that really, it really, I think it really added to just what the images were, you know, that whole aspect of it. So that's the other part that's sort of being unfolding here. And so, yeah, in the process right now, we kind of arrived at, let's start with maybe 64 of these things, and then figure out how to, I guess, formalize them a bit more into possible card layout, stuff like that.
Yeah. The other aspect of it is, you know, speaking of tool chains, or these things, I find these things fascinating to kind of figure out. Like, so, you know, did a bunch of work. How do you actually do trading card packs where things are in, you know, like foil wrapped, you know, with art, the kind of thing that if you walked into the corner bodega, you'd be like, oh, cool, they got the new set of whatever that you happen to be collecting. And so we, you know, just discovering that whole world. And there was, at one point we were thinking about doing it as like kind of die cut stickers. See it, you taking off, Tom? See it. And sort of, we begged off, we kind of moved away from that just because it felt like there's a certain complexity to it and it was a little bit unclear. But there, places where you can do trading cards and learning like the vernacular of that, like how many versions, and so you got to, what do you mean by versions? Oh, okay, we figure it out, and then you figure out what the cost is to actually get these packs and where the minimums kind of lie. So it's been, that's the meta thing of the project. Jed, do you want to share some of the images, because that's really weird.
Sure. What
That
here I
Figma
got
maybe or something.
Say again, sorry.
The Figma, or do you want me to share
Yeah.
it? Is it easier for me to share it?
I can try and do it. Where's a good way to share it on this? Let's see.
I think you go down to security, or no, where do you go? I don't know. How do you, oh, share screen, the big red, green thing at the bottom, you should
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, and then here we go. Is that coming through?
Yep, maybe zoom in a nudge.
Yeah. So this is sort of a group of some of them here. I'll just kind of come into one of them. Yes. Let's see. So this would be kind of a more. So, and right now it's just right now we just sort of have the prompts laid out below them. But here I'll just kind of.
That guy's got 3 legs.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the crazier ones.
But you like, I would lean. I mean, if I'm going to write the little write up for the things, the little, it's a late model,
Yeah.
tri-hoof or something like that, and it's like, okay, well,
Right.
I mean, some of them only have 3 hooves.
Yeah, this was an early one. You had a great statement on that, Julia. I think it was something like, that's an image that religions are formed around or something. And I just thought that that was kind of fun. And let me find. We have that one that actually has your kind of first. Let's see. Well, here, let me. This is the one that I had sort of said, what do you think about this one? And then you wrote, let's see if I got that on this sheet here. Yeah, I think this is it. Right? I don't know if you guys were able to read it or not from there, but that was the statement that you had kind of thrown together fast. Is that readable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Vibram hooves.
Yeah, and never a problem with this one. Sometimes gets lost, but never wanders far.
Yeah.
Things like that were, I thought were great.
Self-addressed stamped envelope.
Yeah.
Remember that back in the day, you'd send like an envelope with a stamp on it to get the catalog or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and then some are kind of more. I guess I consider this more implanty in a way, and then some are kind of more getting to the robot-ish. It's sort of just a flow of creating these things. I don't know. It's some are small flocks, groups, herds.
Yeah, 3 for 1, kind of to match that.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still sort of sorting what maybe here's one from last night actually that was pretty funny. But then there was sort of there's sort of the initial ones, and then with Midjourney and all of its sort of variations on stuff. Perhaps you start getting into just the nuance of what what one is like versus another that are from maybe a similar flock or hybrid. But I think we're going to leave the variations alone for now and just stick to some distinct breeds, I guess you could call them. And yeah, so I'm kind of getting close, I think, to a point where we have roughly 64. And then, yeah, that's sort of where it's at. And then it was kind of just about maybe formalizing how it might look on a trading card, and getting into some of the text around it. Then, yeah, anything else that starts coming up.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is sort of my first go at prompting Midjourney stuff, and and sticking in line with I think a lot of what we're doing it kind of spend a bunch of time previous with with, with the automobiles. Sorry, I'm a little cold today. So yeah, that's where it's at.
Good stuff.
I'm still vibing on that. Like this is an image that religion would be formed around. Like I think I was reading Regenesis, the George Monbiot book, and he traces a lot of like pastoral imagery in Christianity back to Virgil and like this over romanticization of farming from like the Roman times. And I'm looking at this going like, yeah, is this like holy? Is this profane? Like I think there's a really cool tension in there. There's like so much like Lamb of God stuff in major religion. Like yeah, there's a really cool angle to poke at there.
So was it? Yeah, it's fascinating. It just made me think. It's like, yeah, where does that stuff come from? Like, what's up with all the lambs? Like.
Yes, like I mean, I don't know if this is the kind of thing Ben actually normally comes and corrects me on. So, yeah, like he was tracing it back to like Virgil's poetry. Like at the time in Rome, they were romanticizing like the rural and the shepherd and stuff, and were compared to the filthy urbanite Romans. And of course, he was a filthy urbanite Roman, so it's like that thing of like you've never actually watched the sheep. Like,
Well, they had lots of slaves in Rome. The mainstay of their economy was kidnapping people from France and making them do all the work. So, yeah. This is an amazing project, by the way.
Thanks.
Like
Yeah, it's
domestication,
really
but much more so.
Well, yeah,
I think this one's definitely gonna travel.
It's also did anyone see the Balenciaga like virtual world thing they made? It was really cool. It's like up for like a week. Basically, they had like a WebGL video game that Balenciaga made of this like very dystopian world for like a large cloak that they were trying to sell. But all the like ads as you walk on the street just had like these terrible things of like, bees, like robotic bees for pollinating, or like a nonprofit to like put fish back in the oceans. Like, this seems very, we're gonna need that, aren't we?
Probably. Yeah, I think part of our process too is not to get too caught in the weeds and to keep the flow going and try and get this out the door sooner than later. Because it hasn't been going on that long, and I think we've had a good balance so far, just sort of sorting through some of the logistics and making it work. And we haven't set like exact deadlines here, but I think both of us are in the mindset that the sooner the better, and don't get too caught in the weeds. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I got.
What else? We can. I have a call at past. So I'll have to leave, but I'm happy to leave things open.
Yeah, I'll turn this off. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to run.
I've been thinking about the ways in which near future design fiction practices intersect with systems thinking. I don't know if that's something that anybody has put a bunch of explicit thought into, thinking of like Donella Meadows' 12 ways to intervene in a system, stuff like that. And I wonder about like how you might choose a specific design fiction based on what type of intervention you were hoping to have. Like, what's a design fiction that's a paradigm shift? What's a design fiction that changes the language of a system? Stuff like that. Is that something that anybody has looked into in the past?
I have tried provoking an unwilling engineering team at work with like a deck that was purposely framed as like a speculation. The actual proposal was real, but if I put it in there, I don't have the engineering credibility to make the proposal. But if I step back and was like, hey, wouldn't it be better if our experience was like this? And then it was like a design fiction built around this like very happy developer experience, but the implication was actually the change that I wanted to make. And it didn't land very well. So I think like in my experience there, so far, I totally mispitched like how much scaffolding I needed to do between the creativity of design fiction and then like the systems that I was trying to land it in. And that was like a good thing to learn, and I'll try again. But yeah, like I don't have any success stories.
Mm-hmm. Is there anybody who is not familiar with the ways to intervene in a system that would like just a basic primer real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Donella Meadows wrote this in 1999, put together this list of 12 ways to intervene in a system. So they're roughly ranked in sort of order of power, but they're all powerful, if that makes sense. Like any intervention can matter, but they sort of are intervening at different points. So starting on the lowest on the list, parameters such as subsidies, taxes, and standards. 11 is the size of buffer stocks relative to their flows. 10 is the structure of material stocks and the flows. 9 is the length of delays relative to the rate of change of system change, which doesn't sound totally dissimilar from like your slow messaging machine, Julian. The strength of negative feedback loops. 7 is the gain around driving positive feedback loops. 6 is the structure of information flows, access to information. Maybe that one's more in line with the messaging machine. 5 is the rules of the system, such as incentives and constraints. 4 is the power to add, change, or self-organize system structure. 3 is the goals of the system. 2 is the mindset or paradigm out of which the system arises. And 1 is the power to transcend paradigms. So some examples there, might be around like, just for the skateboarding perspective, the paradigm shift that I'm pursuing for transportation is like when people say complete streets, I want them to say walking and biking and skateboarding, right? And that is just a paradigm shift that then changes the conversation as a whole. All the others sort of a trickle down effect from that. And then, an example of say, let's see, the rules of the system, such as incentives and constraints. In California, the bus shelters are paid for by advertising. So in places where there's a lot of money for advertising, you have really nice bus shelters, and where you don't have a lot of money for advertising, there are not nice bus shelters. And so like that's the incentive, that produces good or bad public transit infrastructure, right? And so if you were to like, change the funding structure for those things, you would ultimately change, the prevalence of good infrastructure. So anyways, but it seems like, that we could play the sort of what if game across any of these things. And it would potentially, especially when thinking of like, doing this sort of stuff with an organization or something like that, you could be like, well, okay, well, what's the type of intervention you're hoping to have, and then you sort of like play within any one of those spheres. So yeah, go ahead.
One thing that I have done, I haven't pushed on it recently, but I just got back in touch with the person. I've been trying to look at having any data that a server from Apple sends that encode some costs of doing so. Not with the expectation, because servers can send whatever they want along with stuff, and most people will not notice, but some people might. And so thought that would be a neat thing to just have as a number that some people will then sort of reflexively end up putting on a dashboard for whatever reason, and then maybe want to make those numbers go down.
Yeah, totally. Like having visibility on certain data can change people's things. Oh, here's another. Do you guys know how speed limits are set in California?
There are speed limits in California.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like minimums or maximums.
So it's based on this the 85th percentile principle, and it's not based on any kind of like road design or like ideal travel modality or anything like that. What it is, they send out people with speed guns every so often, and they just measure the speed of how fast people are actually traveling in the space, and they set it based on the 85th percentile, such that 85% of the people will be driving at or below that speed. So it's this constant ratcheting up of the speed limit, because it's just like whoever is willing to break the law, whatever that 15% of people is, however large that group is, how fast there are above it, they're the ones who are ultimately helping to set the expectations for it. So what if we set speed limits by some other means, right? I mean, of course, like it's the whole thing where like at 15 miles an hour in a collision, like 95% of people survive, right? At 25 miles an hour, 85% of people survive. And whatever, I mean, these are sort of, loose numbers, but it's like at 35 miles an hour, 85% of people die, and sort of like, helping to make that very clear for people. And it's like, well, what happens when you start to, intervene in those ways? What is that? What's the system look like? Anyways, yeah, I've just been thinking about the intersections between these two sort of formats, and how so much of like systems thinking is really cool, but it's hard to imagine into it. And then design fiction has like a lot of great imaginative practices, and often maybe could be challenging people to understand like how it might impact their system. So seeing the sort of Venn diagram between those two things could be really productive.
Yeah, one thing that I think Julian's raised in some podcasts about design fiction is the sort of traditional inversion of it. It's very individually centered rather than sort of the grand systems design. But that doesn't mean that the systems don't exist. It's more that it's about the personal experience of those systems. And so I think that it's actually really apt to be able to look for incidental artifacts that happen to exist in a world where a system has been put in place. And to think about what the personal felt experience of those things would be. So yeah, I think it's a fun lens to apply. So I think that's an accurate characterization, Julian. But it's a really great reminder of like that systems happen to people, and so that those are the proximal effects that need to be observed, because we don't see the world from nowhere. We see the world from where we are, and even well-meaning systems often fail to sweat the details of the individual felt sort of consequences of it.
Yeah, I'll search for some kind of good article or primer on this stuff. I mean, Donella Meadows has a book. She has and there's like the Donella Meadows website foundation type thing. It's all pretty well spelled out. She has sort of like her foundational essay, much like Julian has his design fiction, foundational essay, like the thing from which all of this stuff ultimately grew out.
That's cool. Yeah, I will read more about it. From my part, I haven't done anything particularly future-facing, except for attending the World Wide Web Consortium standards meeting, which I'm also supposed to be in today for Web GPU. And we also talked to some of the folks who are responsible for trying to propose and promote web neural network as a technology to be able to actually directly access neural network sort of centered silicon on various people's devices for the purpose of making loads there. One of the funny things about the committee is that most people don't, in WebGPU at least, most people don't know how to make anything pretty. They don't mostly use graphics for any particularly interesting reason. And so despite the fact that I don't make WebGPU, I thankfully have a place in communicating about things, because otherwise some of the concerns of actually doing stuff fall away. But it's interesting to, and kind of dizzying sometimes, to think about these fairly concrete, if still currently speculative technologies for what it means people will be able to do with these fairly flippant platforms. Web is zero trust and accessible from anywhere by anybody with anything. But then sort of these new libraries and their intents are really tantalizing for what that might mean people would do with an internet that is sort of based on them.
I was just listening, but slightly distracted as I'm writing an email to Jed, to the place that I think we sort of decided we'd use for manufacturing, and I'm trying to I don't know. I feel, part of me feels like
Well,
I'm trying to sound as it shouldn't matter at all, but it's like I said, so because he asked, so I asked him a different quote. I said, so we're nearing completing production, and I realized we need mechanical templates or details. So can you please provide information for my art department for cards and the foil wrapper, size, bleeds, etc. Additionally, would it be possible to quote for 64 versions, 320 per version, 5 per pack, for a total of 4,096 packs? Right? 'Cause we're gonna, this is how things work, and our timing: : we're scheduled to finish art March 15th, final review and approvals March 17th, and start manufacturing as soon as practical afterwards, and then final delivery to our distribution facility. Jim, what are your lead times now? What can we anticipate for production timing given your current queue of work? I mean, yeah, that's it. You know, I just made up some deadlines for us, but he's probably thinking like, oh damn man, these guys are in a war room now with a big old Gantt chart on it.
Sounds like a good deadline.
I think it's good. I mean, I feel like now, you know, I would, as we talked the other day, I would sort of, you know, just start leaning more into the stuff that isn't maybe for some people, I don't know, for you, it's like a little bit less fun, which is like, okay, I got to clean up each one of these, you know, if you feel necessary, like, that one threw a pink shadow. Do I want to leave that? Is that okay? And then, you know, we get the mechanicals for the cards. And you had made that, you were talking, which I think is good. You're talking like, I think these are horizontal landscape. So Jeb was thinking these should be landscape because, I mean, creatures of this sort with 4 legs are landscape. And then I thought it would be funny if there were like 4-hoofed sheep that were actually like like this, because they're good for trees, you know, like low branches and that kind of thing. You need some digesters.
It still could go both ways. I was just kind of thinking at that day.
Yeah, I sort of like it. I don't know, but you know, you should try doing a template layout. Maybe that's something, you know, like is it horizontal and then a nice you know, like a nice area in the, you know, upper left, or maybe towards the towards the hindquarters. That's just like the name. Like this is a Raytheon 4312. You know, quote unquote Betsy or whatever. And then on the other side, and just keep the front, you know, kind of simple that way, but maybe like just a little graphic art around it that kind of, you know, gives some image balance to it, so it's not just white bleeding off into no space, but maybe just like a nice 2 pixel kind of rounded corner edge around it.
Yeah, I think after too, I was noticing that
what's the logo for the outfit that puts the card set together? Is it a little patch of grass or a little cow pie? with
Yeah,
some
I'm
kind
think-
of like high 70s high tech like little logo, like um, or do sheep have as many stomachs as cows? Like it's like, you know, 4 stomach industries or something like that.
I forget. That's a good question. Yeah. Yeah, border. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think like the garbage pails they all had a border too, like a frame,
Mm-hmm.
babies. I was gonna mess with that thought too. So,
Yeah.
it's not I feel like there's people that have a much stronger opinion on when it gets down to the layout. So I'll throw some things together and maybe some people want to weigh in on that.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm happy to play with that as well. Hopefully, like in a few days, I'll have a little bit more.
Yeah.
Headroom.
Yeah. I'm just time wise. We're taking off later. For Dash has his vacation next week from school, so we're going out of town for a couple days.
Okay, so here's what I would say or suggest is get as much as you can, like have something left when you take off that I can pick up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like whatever that is, even if it's in the middle of something, and just kind of where we're at, and then it just could be like kind of like a handoff, and I'll just see what I can do, and so that things don't stall, because now Jim's expecting stuff.
Okay, well I'm out of here. I'm out of here in like 4 hours. And I
Oh, 4 hours. It's not like
or
Monday.
I think I gotta get Bodhi at school at like 2:45, and I gotta still pack for 4 days. But I'm taking my computer and stuff, so I'll get on it. I'll stay on it while I'm away.
Okay, cool. And maybe I can start looking at some of the stuff in Figma and seeing if
Yeah, if you have a link to that, I'll keep trying to do stuff.
I think I still have that.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to run to meet this guy Greg to talk about a new near future laboratory logo. So I'm gonna go do that. If anyone wants, does anyone want to stick around? I can leave this open.
I should go as well. I should do some work.
All right. Oh yeah, it's Friday.
Yeah, I gotta kick somebody out of an organization, write some harsh emails.
Oh, okay.
To listen to a terse committee about whether to use float 32s and angle brackets. Riveting.
Yeah, fist fight's gonna happen there, boy. Someone's gonna come out with their feelings hurt.
They have some stories of some thrown chairs in the past.
Yeah.
Not this particular committee, but yeah, it gets to be pretty tense work.
People get passionate about this stuff.
I love, like, I've seen like a presentation for that kind of committee where like you can see something like that where it's like Andrew used in 64, and I'm going like, oh, I can tell that's a laugh line, but that's really bad.
All right. Aaron, I'm gonna see you later, and see everyone else in the Discord. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.